You're listening to Aged Care Uncovered, shining a spotlight onto the Australian aged care sector, giving our older Australians and their families insight and a voice. Today's episode is sponsored by Aged Care Ready, assisting elderly clients and their families navigate the aged care sector. Now here's your host, Naomi Anderson.
I'm Naomi Anderson, your host, and today I am joined by a guest co-host. So not Caitlin today, but today we have Jonno McCartney. Welcome, Jonno.
Hello, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolute pleasure, my friend.
What are we talking about today?
What are we talking about today? Aged care in home, keeping those loved ones in there, mate. I think
home modifications.
Yeah.
And I have brought you in because this is your area of specialty.
Yeah.
So how about you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do and what your business is?
McCartney Electrical started back 2013. We've been running and we've had all sorts of dribs and drabs of different work that we've had along the way, but yeah, we really found our niche in the aged care space, loving working for our elderly clients and the rapport that we can actually get with them, which is really cool. So,
yeah.
And the way that we can actually help them along the way and make their home safe. What
Yeah.
the hell not? It's great.
Yeah. So let's dig a little bit deeper into that. When you say that you can do some home modifications and make their home safe, what are you actually talking about?
Well, the whole point at the moment, you look at what COVID's happened with private aged care places. The government want to try and keep these people in their homes for as long as possible, and to be able to do that when you become aged, I guess, or we're all going to get old eventually one day, and those that are already there, your body doesn't do the same thing, your mind's not as sharp, so we need to make sure we're putting things in place in that house to eliminate the risks of potential falls, or they might leave a cooker on and burn the pot down, and eventually they don't have a sense of smell, and the next thing the house is burnt down. So there's all sorts of things that we need to be mindful of with these beautiful elderly clients, just to make sure that they feel safe in their own environment.
Yeah, and I think what you said before as well is really critical, because from our experience, what we have seen, it's always better as a first option to keep people at home in their own homes for as long as possible.
Absolutely.
Because even though aged care is great, it's kind of psychologically their end destination, right? So keeping them at home as long as possible, independent, is a really good move for not only their mental health, but their physical health as well. So before you were mentioning the sense of smell, let's talk about cooktops.
Yep.
And gas cooktops in particular, and why they are actually not so great for the elderly person living at home.
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to knock them on, and then most of them have that push button where you've got to turn to actually let the gas out, but the actual big problem is with the clients and the elderly is that they leave the burner on, and the flame's just going, and who knows, there might be a pot underneath it and they've just forgotten all about it.
Yeah. I think the other thing with that as well is if they just leave the gas going and they can't smell that, all of a sudden they light a candle or they go to light another burner and it just goes up in flames.
100%. So that and that's got to do with potentially a faulty igniter on the gas. It's just leaking gas into the air. We don't want that. There's a feel around the industry at the moment that the government is pulling away from gas appliances, hot water, and all that sort of stuff, and they're finding that they want to be using solar. They want to, because obviously we've got our targets for 2050 that the government have committed to, but with electric and being able to use the solar panels on the house, it's a whole combination with batteries and all that sort of stuff too. But induction's so much safer because they've got all they've got all those functions on their timer functions and kill switches that just cut everything out.
Yeah.
So as much as people love the old traditional gas and all that sort of stuff, we have to adapt to change, and that's what's coming. So, I
think there's also a misunderstanding around the induction cooktops as well, because in the past they have been said that they're not safe for people specifically with permanent pacemakers. However, what we're seeing, and I'm sure that you've seen as well, is that in the newer models, they are actually very safe for people with pacemakers, as long as they're over 30 centimetres away. And, you know, if you think about it, your permanent pacemaker's in your chest, and you're not going to be like laying on top of your induction cooktop, so 30 centimetres is really not that far.
Yeah, that's far enough, absolutely. Yeah. So, but just I love the fact that you can get a demonstration at any of your at appliance places, and you can look online as well. But to see water boil within 6 seconds is insane. Like, it's so cool. You can put your pan on there and it's hot straight away, and then as soon as you remove your pan,
you can touch
surface
it.
is cold.
Yeah,
like
it's safe.
Crazy. Yeah, it's super safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good addition to the home. And but that's one of many, obviously, safety aspects that we look at.
Yeah. And so other things that you can do in terms of electrical modifications to the home, obviously you've got your standard split systems, fans, things like that. What else would you be looking at putting in?
So one of the main things we like to look at whilst we're in there is the location of switches and power points. A lot of these homes haven't been touched in a long time, and there's extension leads and power boards going everywhere, and your power boards aren't necessarily the safest things in the world. So we keep plugging on, and it can create a potential hotspot there, and obviously fire.
Or trip hazards.
That's the big one, the trip hazards. So what we do is we just relocate stuff like switches and power points. We actually get the jumbo size ones, so they're easy to work with.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we can, eliminate another risk in the home, especially for that fall. Like, I remember the day when I was a kid, and when I accidentally tripped my nan up, and this is one of the reasons why I do love what I do. But I tripped her up in Barker Street in Footscray one day, and she was never the same. I ruined her hip. And she never blamed me for it, but I obviously wear that like a little bit on my heart. But so Nan was never the same with her hip, and she never moved the same way. So eliminating those trip hazards is a big thing for me, especially. Yeah.
What I'm specifically thinking of when you're talking about trip hazards and changing those electrical power points are the electrical recliners.
Those recliners, they're great. We've actually got, so most of the time when you put the recliners in, your power point's on the wall, your recliner's actually in the middle of the room, so people are running extension leads across. So what we do, whether it's a slab floor or a timber floor, whichever one, floating floor, whichever you got, we can actually go through there and chase out the floor and install a power point actually underneath there, so it eliminates that other risk as well. Super safe.
Absolutely. So how do we marry the home care packages to these home modifications? Because obviously a lot of the time elderly clients don't have the funds themselves to be able to afford this type of service, but it's something that's so desperately needed. Is this something that you can actually work with the home care provider with?
Absolutely. That's we've had great relations and have great relationships with their home care providers, and it's all a matter of just working in with them and trying to work out how this is going to benefit the end user. And I guess the way is working with the provider on the correct wording. Is the technical side of it to make sure that we can get this through.
Well, if it's something that can be justified and is obviously beneficial for the safety of that client, then absolutely I can't see why not that couldn't actually be charged to the home care package.
Yeah, totally agree. It's just there is a little bit of bureaucracy through that middle tier, and you just have to make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's to make sure that the end user's getting what they need.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
What else are we working on in there? So, there's all sorts of stuff. Dementia and Alzheimer's is obviously something that is a pretty serious one, and most of the time I guess we try to push those clients into a cared facility. But there is actually options out there that are being worked on at the moment where we can actually set up zones around the property. So if we want to keep them in home, we can. And by doing this, we can actually create triple alarms on the doors. So as soon as they look like they're at the door and you can't see what's going on. It actually locks the exterior, so the gates and they all just shut and no one can actually leave the property.
Yeah.
So it's a good little system, that one.
So that means what you're saying there is that they can still get outside into the fresh air, into the garden and potter around. It's just a safety feature to stop them from going out onto a busy road or something like that.
Yeah, doing a runner or just going for a wander.
Yeah.
So you can have that peace of mind and know that your loved one's going to be on the property at all times. Secondly was the deterrent system that we've got together, which includes CCTV and sensor lighting. Now, with our elderly clients, obviously they're at home by themselves.
They get frightened.
Mate, they get frightened real quick. So we've actually installed a lot of CCTV systems recently, and that's the sensor lights as well. And we find that our clients actually find it more interesting watching the CCTV than watching Days of Our Lives. So yeah, it's a good one.
People walking past the house, down the street.
Yeah, just watching what's going on, seeing what's happening outside. And, it's brilliant. So, but the statistics that we've got, so as that person is walking up to the home, the sensor lights go off. They'll also see the red glow of the cameras, and then there's an extra component that we add to it at the end of the day, that if your loved one's actually feeling fear and they're still not sure with all that going on, you can hit a panic button which actually turns everything on.
Yeah.
So then that's enough to generally deter would-be people coming into your home. So.
Is that sort of system also connected to, say, an emergency contact or police?
Not this one that we've got, but it's probably something we can look at later on down the track, definitely.
There's an idea for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is a basic model that we've put together which works within the package to make sure that the client gets something that not only does the job for them, but it's very, very simple for them. The technology gap, unfortunately, guys, there is a technology gap, but what we try to do is limit that as much as possible. So the learning component of getting to the CCTV and basically what we're installing, that gap's very, very small. So our elderly loved ones aren't actually feeling any overwhelm from new learning, because that is real.
Yeah.
They just don't like it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So obviously these houses that you're going into most of the time are older.
Yeah.
Let's talk about safety.
There's a lot of these houses that people are in have been in for 40, 50 years, and they've still got the old federal fuses there with the wire that goes through them, and they're just not practical for today's day and age when there's so much better technology out there to make you safer.
Yeah.
Like a safety switch, even in residential leased properties now, like it's mandatory that you have to have safety switches on your power and lighting. You can't get around that, like it's that important. So, and with the older cabling that's there as well, there's a chance that you might, especially when you're in and around, let's say Collingwood or Fitzroy, coming back out, Baldwin, there's a lot of those places that had the old rubber cable, they had cotton cable. That stuff just...
Flammable.
Yeah, that stuff's ready to go. And those of us that haven't renovated their houses in the last 30, 40 years, if not 20, there is a potential for something like that to happen, because you're on the old system, fires happen pretty easy, and those cables are not safe. So.
And I guess that is a little bit of an outlay, but it's also, it's very, I can't think of the word. It is a little bit of an outlay, but it's also critical to their safety as well, especially if they're becoming a little bit forgetful, or they're just plugging too many things into the one PowerPoint or the power board. You know, it's worth that investment.
Absolutely.
For peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the house, the home that's owned by your loved ones. It's an investment for the family later on as well. So you want to make sure that you're protecting that investment too. Not that I want to come from a selfish angle or anything like that, but property works in Australia. So it's like you want to be making sure that you look after that asset.
Yeah, and I mean also if that person's looking at going into an aged care facility down the track, that's something that needs to be taken into consideration as well, the property they do own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just couldn't agree more, mate. But yeah, safety switches, they're amazing.
It's
really
probably one of the things that's overlooked pretty commonly, I imagine.
It is. You don't know what you don't know, and when it comes to your safety switches, you don't need it until you actually use it. And when you use it, you actually get a bit grumpy around the fact that, like, we get countless phone calls from people saying, "Oh, my power's out." I'm like, yeah, but it just saved your life. Like, remove the anger and the inconvenience. Like, this thing just saved your life. Your investment paid itself off. You get a bit of a change of conversation then, which is great. So, but yeah, they're just put safety switches in your home. I can't be more.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Like, this is not sort of something that we're willing to look past, because they are such an important, integral part of home safety.
Yeah. All right. So talk to me a little bit. You mentioned before the government's solar initiative. Talk to me about that, because I don't know anything about that.
So, government are committed to, I think it's 2050, that they've got a certain amount of solar that has to be here, renewables that have to be here in Australia, and they are miles off. So they are throwing money left, right and centre at it. So you can get, actually, I seen one of these installed the other day. I'm going to get one down the factory, which is an electric hot water unit which comes with a heat pump. Fully, like, the most efficient thing going around. It takes up twice the space that you need for a normal hot water unit, but saves you money. So it sort of makes sense to give up a little bit of space on your property to go and get one of these hot water units. They're really, really cool. Solar panels obviously is another thing. They don't work as efficiently here in Melbourne just yet, because we get so much sun, and then we get so much cloud, and we get so much rain, and you never know what you're going to cop in Melbourne. But end of the day, the government want solar panels on here because we're going to be moving away from fossil fuels. It's just not going to be a part of our future. So solar panels are here, and they're here to stay. The other part is the battery packs. Now, they're not, you're not going to get your payback on batteries just yet, but battery storage is going to be a big thing that's going to be putting in homes, and that over the next 5 to 10 years. I'd say just about every second person will have a battery on their home.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think about at the moment. Like, you look at solar 20 years ago when they did the 66 cent rebate on whatever you're putting back into the grid, and people only had these little small 6-panel or 10-panel systems. They were making thousands of dollars a year on what they were putting back into the grid. Now, with the evolution of solar panels, they're still the same size or a little bit bigger, but you can get triple the capacity out of them. So yeah, the efficiency's coming, just like everything. So it's moving along nicely. But this is where the future's going. Like, we won't be burning fossil fuels out in Gippsland. We'll be generating our own power from the sun.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
cool.
pretty good for the environment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. How can
Was that
people
it?
contact you, and where do you service?
We service everywhere when it comes to aged care. We love it.
Melbourne?
Yeah, Melbourne. We head up to Gippsland, down the peninsula. But yeah, we if there's someone that we can help in the aged care space, we'll be helping them. But yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. That's what we love doing. We're McCartney Electrical Solutions. We're based in Baronia. You can call us on 1300 03 0391. Just go to the website, McCartneyelectricalsolutions.com.au.
Thank you so much for joining us about how to prepare your elderly loved ones home safely to keep them at home for as long as possible. I'm Naomi Anderson, the host of Aged Care Uncovered. Thank you for joining us, whichever channel you found us on, whether that's our podcast, our YouTube channel, Facebook group. If you have an elderly loved one and you're needing some support, Check out our Facebook group, Aging Parent Support Group, over on Facebook, like I said. Otherwise, you can find us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We'll see you next time. See ya.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to Aged Care Uncovered. If you enjoyed today's episode, head on over to your favourite podcast streaming app and give it 5 stars. If you have any questions about today's episode or about aged care in general, please contact us.